Could not be here this morning since she's in New Zealand and it's 3:30 in the morning over there right now. All right, I'll keep letting people in. I just want to say welcome, welcome everyone. And Rebecca, welcome
Hello.
from London. Thank you so much for calling in this time. I know, what time is it over there right
It's
now?
4:30 in the
4:30.
afternoon. So I should actually be saying thank you to everyone who woke up, actually, because
Good.
4:30 is easy.
We have a couple people on the East Coast and in the Midwest too, but it looks like this time works for people. Look at all these people showing up. This is great. Everyone's like, yeah.
Like, no excuses next time now.
Exactly, exactly. Good, good, good. People are still coming in. Great. Well, as people are arriving, I will introduce Rebecca and how I know you and how I met you. This was many moons ago, Rebecca. We met at what is it called now? It was the Kiva Rose gathering in Colorado.
In Colorado, it was the Good
The Good
Medicine.
Medicine Confluence, which I believe it's still called the Good Medicine Confluence. Yes. And I remember you were there with, I believe, Kings Road Apothecary was your
Yeah.
line at that time.
Well,
And I had followed you on Instagram. That was like the height of Instagram when Instagram was the
when it
place that
was,
people could launch companies. Remember that?
yeah, yes, when it
2016,
wasn't
2017.
stressful.
Yes, which was really helpful at that time. And we know every era has its moment, and that was its moment because it was it was very creative. It was a lot easier for people to find folks and really connect actually in real life from that platform. And I had followed your journey a little bit online, but then we met in person and then we met again in LA because my wife is in the film industry, and your ex-husband is still maybe in the film industry
It
as
still
well.
is.
Yeah, so we were able to meet up in LA and meet again, and we've stayed connected. We're both Scorpios, which is something we have in common. And through this time, I've been watching your journey transition quite a bit recently, mostly from afar and through your writings, which you're an amazing writer, and I have a lot of deep respect for very good writers, which you definitely are. You're very prolific in your writing, and now I was also able to be graced with a reading from you most recently, which we'll come to on what you're doing now, what you're doing more currently. But I know as an herbalist, your journey has been wide and deep and has come to many different places. So before I'll have you introduce yourself, because I know you will have a different version of what I just shared, because I have not filled in all the other gaps, nor maybe I know them. I might not know these gaps. But I do know that why I'm really excited for you to be here today is that your archetype as a human being, your ability to represent the person who really truly listened to themselves in the arc of doing what you love to do and taking care of yourself in the process, whatever that means for you. I'm sure there was some crescendos of volcanoes and moments where it didn't seem so obvious and so good, but that you kept going. Your journey didn't end with one, this is who I am, this is my identity, I have to do this forever. And if it doesn't work, then it's I'm a failure. I'm sure those moments happen too. They all happen with all of
Oh,
us.
yeah.
But watching you expand in authenticity is the place I have deep, deep, deep respect for and learn a lot from folks that can do that. I know that comes with a lot of that journey. So we're here today for you to share your journey and for the folks here to really get guidance on how to keep doing that in their own lives. So Miss Rebecca, would you mind introducing yourself in the way that you would like to be introduced?
Okay. Oh goodness. That's actually I was listening to you introduce me and I was like, oh, I need to remember that because the elevator pitch is not my forte. So let's see. The way it how right. Hi. My name is Rebecca Altman. I am I call myself a spiritual advisor. which is what I have come to over time because there's not really very many words to describe what it is that I think I do, which is actually to teach people how to be authentic. And it really is that simple for me that I think what I have come to over the course of all of the different career paths I have stepped into, and there are so many. Um, but I feel like I can look back over the arc of all of it and see that the common thread at its core was authenticity and bringing people into that for themselves over and over and over and over again. And it's one of the things I think as a teacher, the or thinking about, Instagram or the world of spiritual teachers, herbal teachers, not necessarily herbal teachers, but in the I think more in the world of spiritual teaching and spiritual coaching, the ways in which people are so easily pulled away from themselves as opposed to being pointed back towards themselves is something that I feel like this much rage over, maybe slightly more. Um, because the way I see it, if you're not pointing somebody back towards themselves in some way or another, then what's the point? And I think that all of the best teachers in some way are going to point people back towards themselves, towards finding their own truth, towards finding what it is they want to be doing. There's so many people who are able to create carbon copies of themselves in other people, but what's that really doing in the world? So basically, over the course of my life so far, I have come to the point where I'm like, oh, what I stand for is authenticity, and I stand for it in all its forms. And it has been a long and winding journey, and it will continue to be a long and winding journey. I think this is just the way of it for so many of us. There's no one path. And so I haven't really done much introducing of myself in the way you asked, but that's what I do and that's what I'm here for. And right now the form that takes is that I talk to people spirit guides for them and I work with people in their lives to help them find what is their most authentic path for themselves. And that looks like so many different things because each person's different. So so yes, when I said that I have a hard time actually describing myself, it's because of that. Wh when you're leading people back to themselves, how do you really describe that when it's different for everyone? So that's
That was a great introduction because we'll go into your story, so then we'll fill in all the other pieces. But I think that's a fantastic umbrella for us to hold you in. I was talking to this group a couple of weeks ago actually about authenticity and how we actually overuse that term as a simple idea. And people saying, oh, that's an authentic person, that's an authentic person. But you dive deep into the psychology of authenticity. Authenticity means you're othered. It's actually not an easy journey, nor is it a simple journey for people to be authentic. It means that you are listening to yourself first, and therefore other people around you probably won't agree with you half the time. You have to understand that comes with authenticity. And so I'm just going to put that here, reminding people that authenticity is not an easy journey, and it's actually a pretty rare journey. It's not something that most people choose because of the changes that you have to make in your life in order to do so, which is usually against maybe the family of origin, cultural standards, gender standards, whatever that is. And ideally, finding other people in your life that are going on the authentic journey helps you more to keep aligned with that inner voice outside of the other voices that are telling you what to do. And hopefully this group here with entrepreneurs, budding entrepreneurs, herbalists, healers, that we can be that for one another. But I want to make sure authenticity is not thrown around as an easy idea, because we know
It
it's
really, it really isn't. And it's also such an ongoing thing. I feel like the process of aging itself is simply the process of getting to know yourself more and more deeply, but it is so easy to uncover a new aspect of yourself or discover something new about yourself and then become attached to that as a story or a belief about yourself. And then, let's say 2 years later, a new aspect of yourself emerges that might contradict what you have learned and become attached to. And then what? And if we are attached to past aspects of ourselves, then it becomes very, very difficult to stay authentic because the act of being authentic is a simultaneously having the courage to see what is, and then the ability to let go of what is no longer. And sometimes the thing that is no longer is something that you like or other people like, but it's simply no longer you anymore. And I think that we are simply not taught that life is the process of discovering, almost like I'm about to get quite complex quite quickly. Sorry, not sorry. But the the sort of field of possibility for all of us, picture it like a, oh, thank you. Picture it like a vast and infinite sort of grid of, we can even say coordinates, a grid of energy that's very vast, infinite, actually. And let's say you're born here in this infinite grid of possibilities, and the person you think you are is, and the life that you live is sort of reflected back to you around that coordinate. And the life that you experience is what is surrounding that coordinate in the infinite web of all that is. And then through the process of being alive, you're sort of walking a path through this web of coordinates. And some people are born in one coordinate space and take a few steps, and that's it. And they're quite happy like that. Some people are quite happy like that, and they take a few steps, and that's completely it. And then some people are born in this place in the web of coordinates, and then their path takes them over here. And every few years, their previous self will be completely unrecognizable to them. And then it gets even more complex because some people, in moving through this web of coordinates, can be electrons and disappear from one place and reappear over here. And my goodness, does that freak out the people in their lives, and sometimes them. And the web of infiniteness that we have access to is all there for all of us. And the process of being authentic is, the way I see it, simply taking the brakes off of your own journey. And wherever it is that your trajectory is going to lead you in that vast web of coordinates. And for some people, it really is only a few steps. And for some people, it is like taking off on a spaceship that goes into hyperdrive. And then they're like, oh goodness, I don't know what's happening, but like me, 6 months ago, I was like, oh, I'm moving to London. Okay, I'm just gonna pack up my house in the next 6 weeks and get it on the market. I guess I'm okay, I'm going to London. And it's just your internal trajectory is going to carry you through that web of all that is, wherever it is that it is going based on this thing, which is your heart energy, which the way I see it is in some ways almost predetermined. Like it's there before you come into this existence. And the way I describe it is like it's just like if you throw a ball across a football field. I was, I was like, wait, I'm using sports. Why am I using sports analogies? You throw the ball across the football pitch and and it goes flying and it follows a trajectory. I could have I could have used another analogy, but this is where we went. And it follows a set trajectory. But when our energy comes through into physical existence, it pops through. This is my hand diagram of the non-physical and then the physical, and it pops through into the physical and follows a trajectory. For some people, it's that. For some people, it's that. For some people, it's that, and it's different for everyone. But we stop ourselves from allowing that trajectory to take place because for most of us, let's say that society, the larger machine that we all live within and have to survive within, has standards, standard operating procedures for all human beings. We have to be driven and focused and fiery. It is uh efficient, good at time, good at time. Pick a career, stick to that career. Pick a career young and go to school for it and study hard and then get a job in that career and then stay in it for what, 30 something years and then retire and have saved enough to retire. And the story is still the same, even though society is completely different. Um, and then any one of us who aren't that, which is the vast majority of us, any one of us who aren't that, but have learned to be that in order to survive and to get by in the world, we restrict ourselves. We create rules for ourselves. We have rules handed to us. I We have so many rules handed to us, and often by the people who want to keep us safe and want us to succeed and want us to be the best versions of us in society. I was just talking to a client this morning who's a wild and adventurous human being whose grandmother used to like pinch her whenever she would be too energetic. And it was like a little lady doesn't do that. A little lady doesn't do that. And a little lady doesn't do that. And you need to be safe in the world. You need to be safe in the world. We all want to be safe in the world. And so then the process of recovering or remembering your own authenticity goes through dismantling every single one of these things that we have learned and taught ourselves that keep us safe, keep us normal, keep us on track, keep us able to function in society. And it can be really, really scary to go through some of these things because every single one of them is a survival tactic learned young. So yes, the process of each one of these things is removing, I call them anchors, just little things that anchor you in the web of all that is right where you are that make it so much harder for your own authentic trajectory to move at the pace it wants to move at and in the direction it wants to move at. But each time you remove an anchor, your energy flies slightly further and faster. And it's a really, really beautiful thing. So,
Thank you for jumping into your multitudes. You
oh,
contain multitudes. I love that. I love it so much. And so there's so much love here for you in these spaces. My teacher, Dr. Clarissa Nicole Estes, who writes Women Who Run with the Wolves, talks often about this. And that's a great book for any of you who need more guidance on a daily. She's going to
Yeah,
pull it out right now.
no, it's
Oh, The
another one
Gift
of
of
her
Story.
favorite
That's
ones.
a great book of hers. Yes. It's one of my favorites. But she talks about the overculture. This is her
Yeah.
term that she uses for how we define ourselves. And what I love about her, because I work with her every year, is that she's 80 now and she lives alone, but she's married and her family's only allowed to talk to her one day a week. Like she's like, that's what she needs to live her most creative life, to live her most authentic life. And to be able to do that and stand in for herself in that space, that has not been easy. She's had many husbands and she has many children. She has many people she cares for. And she's a prolific writer, as we all know, and an amazing mind. And she needs her creative time. She's like, I'm up in the middle of the night. He doesn't want to do that. So we have dinner once a week. My children are not allowed to call me unless it's an emergency for the week. That's what
Amazing.
she needs. And I hold her as my matriarch. She's matriarch of all of us. She really holds that space even more in person than in her books, which is shocking, but she is the true matriarch. But to be able to be that authentic takes a lot of guts to be able to say, this is what I need. And I am truly not hurting anyone in the process. I will hold space for you, but this is my journey. And to example that for her own children and her own community is a ripple effect. But someone has to start doing it and breaking that mold of what is a true authentic life. And so I think what you're sharing is exactly that. We need more people speaking about it. We are in a time when women can do things that they could not do not that long ago. And there's still barriers. We understand that. But to be able to be in that space of major conversation and trust is really important. So thank you so much for sharing all of that. Tell us how you started as an herbalist. What was your herbal journey? Let's go.
Oh my goodness.
And you're from
Back.
Scotland, yes? So let's go back to the origin of who
Okay,
you
we'll
are.
go back. We'll go back to the origin. Um, I was actually born in London, technically.
Apologies. Apologies.
So it's okay. It's because my accent is slightly Scottish, it is often too complicated. I've got fluff in my eye. It's there, we're done. It is often just too complicated to say, well, I was born in London and then I moved to Scotland when I was 6, then I moved to California when I was 17, and that's why my voice sounds like this. It's all over the place. And but yes, I was raised in Scotland and then moved to California when I was 17. And I I got into herbalism when I was 23. I had been, and prior to that, I had not been a nature person. It, I was actually just describing this to somebody the other day because I was telling them I did a 10-year shamanic apprenticeship that started at the same time. And when I wrote to them to say that I wanted to study with them, on their website, it was, a long time ago. So the website was old. And they had a list of things that was like, you might want to study with us if, and they started listing all of these things that were like, if you've ever seen ghosts, or if you've ever had a near-death experience, or if you feel connected to this, and has like kind of like a stereotypical Jewish princess from Glasgow. And I've never had a near-death experience. I remember in school having to go on a camping trip and being like, camping? Oh, that's nice. Mm, dirt. Huh. It was really uncomfortable for me. And but I wanted to study it so much. And so I wrote them this long email saying, I'm none of these things that you have described, but I really want to do this. And I never heard back from them. So I just signed up anyway. And I was like, maybe they won't notice. Um, and it was actually after. So, the reason I started, I think, connecting to nature. That's not true. Growing up in Scotland, I spent a lot of time outside, to be clear, like most almost every day outside in the woods, in the parks. It was just, I think, as a teenager, I think it was just so much cooler to smoke cigarettes and complain about the world, um, and drink too much coffee and be a jaded 17-year-old. Oh, the embarrassment. Uh, so I started reconnecting. I'm getting all over the place here, but I think that one of the things that happened in moving from Scotland to the US, it was not by choice. My parents retired, and my siblings and I were basically told, we're moving to California in 2 weeks. Pack. And it was my last year of school, and I packed. I think I'd just seen Clueless for the first time, so I was like, oh, California? I'm gonna be a cheerleader and wear one of those like yellow outfits that Cher wore. Um, but the thing that I didn't know at the time was how traumatic it was to, in my last year of school, leave all my friends, leave what was like I was really good at school in Scotland and go to a place where I didn't know the culture. I spoke the language, but it's a completely different culture. And I had like 6 months left of school. And it was really traumatic, which was why smoking and alcohol thing started. And the when I look back now, I can see that my disconnect, because prior to that, I did spend a lot of time outside and I spent a lot of time in the woods. And after that, I felt like I didn't want to connect with the earth where I was. I didn't know, I wouldn't have described it in that way because I was a teenager and knew nothing about any of this stuff, but I can look back and say, oh, I didn't want to connect. I wanted to remain disconnected in a way that I think makes sense when when your roots get a shock. It's it's very, very hard to re root again. So I think I got root shock and remained in root shock for many years. And one of the things that happened as I think a result of the root shock was that when my family, we had like a horrible family tragedy happen. And afterwards, I was misdiagnosed with a psychiatric condition. And it was a true misdiagnosis. Um, and ended up on 5 different psychiatric medications. And this happened for about 2 years. And after 2 years, my mum, bless her, called me. I was at university in Santa Barbara and she was like, this isn't you. Don't know what's going on, but you're moving home. You're dropping out of uni. You're moving home. We're going to sort this. And so I moved home and went through the process of withdrawing from 5 different psychiatric medications. Um, And during the process of doing this, I couldn't do much. I really couldn't do almost anything. And so what I did was hike and yoga. And I got a job cleaning a Bikram yoga studio in exchange for classes. So I would do 2 classes a day and then I would do there were so many hikes. My parents lived in Palm Springs. There were just so many hikes there. So I would wake up at 6, and I just had a very, 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 very rigid routine because your brain is doing things you have absolutely no control over. And I happened to luckily run into someone who had been through it who said, you need a routine. And I just took that and I was like, okay, this is my routine. So I did hike, yoga, yoga, hike, and in between that, I baked batches of cookies for everyone I knew, because it was an easy recipe. And this was what my days were like for a year. It was, but in the process of spending so much time outside hiking, I was out there in the desert for hours a day. And this landscape that when I was that angry, smoking, Boone's Farm drinking teenager, I was just like, this place is so ugly. Like, I came from this place that had a vibrant culture and was green and lush and beautiful, and now these mountains are ugly and dead, and there's nothing here. And when I started hiking in the desert every single day, I was like, oh, this isn't dead. This is so pretty. There are so many alive things here. And every day I would just be out there seeing more and more alive things. And then I would find these little nooks out in the desert where I would, sit surrounded by rocks and just sort of tuck myself in there and spend a couple of hours just sitting because I couldn't do anything. I really couldn't do anything. Um, so I would just sort of sit in the desert and then look at plants in the desert. And at the same time, I had started the shamanic apprenticeship, so I was learning how to listen to rocks, which, as an aside, when you are withdrawing from psychiatric medications because someone has told you that you lack a coherent worldview, and then on the other end, someone's teaching you how to listen to rocks, it's terrifying. It's terrifying. But out there in the desert, with what I was learning, I started to realize that the world around me was alive. And it was a very, very quick step from that to seeing the first one was desert lavender and Hyptis emorii. And uh, and I remember just being like, this smells amazing. This is so beautiful. There's a little canyon in Palm Desert that I used to go, and I would just sort of lie on the sand in the sun, and there's so much desert lavender, and I would just lie there and watch the butterflies and the bees in the desert lavender, and I didn't know what it was, and so I just picked some, and I came home and I went on Google and I went Palm Desert purple flower and scrolled through however many photos until I found it, and I was like, it's called desert lavender. I wonder if it does anything. And then I Googled desert lavender uses and then read that it's helpful for digestion and heartburn. And so I was like, oh, I'm gonna drink some in tea. And this was literally how I became a herbalist, just picking things and coming home and Googling them and going, oh, I wonder what that does. Oh, it's poisonous. Oops. Okay. Uh, and then trying another one and then trying another one. And then I would make teas for people, which bless them for trying them. Um, and that was how I became a herbalist. And it was a couple of years before I discovered that there was a world of herbalists out there. And so it was just a couple of years of me walking around in the desert, picking things and being like, ooh, what does this do? And then learning to speak to rocks and learning to speak to plants. And it was a really lovely, innocent time. I mean, also torturous, but innocent in the sense of I had no idea that there was a world of other people. I mean, it makes sense now, but I was, young and going through stuff. So it didn't occur to me that there was a world of people out there picking plants and using them. Um, so that was how I got into herbalism, and the formulating and starting to sell formulations was because of the movie Practical Magic. 100% I wanted to be Sandra Bullock.
Oh, I love that so much. That's so great. What a great thank you for sharing that story. That's really honest and deep and authentic as we started this conversation with. So it's really wonderful to hear your journey, knowing that everybody's journey is very different. And that's what I love about herbalism so much is that there's so many ways people enter these spaces. And it's rare these days to find the people that have gone out and just hung out with the plants, but that's actually how most herbalists become herbalists. At least a lot of the teachers that I've learned from is they go out and to hang out in the wild and then they start connecting and then they start more formal training afterwards, which makes a lot of sense. Let's jump into Kings Road Apothecary. There's a number of product makers here. I would love to hear one, we've heard how you started and you're tinkering and you're building and you're creating and it sounds like you're a maker anyway, so you're baking cookies, but you're also creating new teas. But I'm curious when you started that company, and I'm going to put that in quotes because I don't know how much of a company you thought you were starting, but let's say that product line, that
Yeah.
that like group of friends that you ended up sharing with others.
Yeah.
When it comes to creating products and creating it for others, what do you think was your sticky point? I know that I'm using a business term here. What's the stickiness of what people want and how you share it and what worked and what didn't? And I know I can get into specifics, but I'm giving you kind of an open view of,
Can you ask that a different way? Because I don't
sure,
like what's the sticky point?
yes, what do you think worked to have
Hmm.
people, when people bought your products, to sell them is a big challenging point for a lot of folks, especially really introverted, sensitive folks. They have a hard time marketing themselves. They have a hard time selling things. And I think they're looking at it, this is my point of view, through sales.
Yeah.
And I have a feeling, I just have a hunch that you weren't looking at it as a sales point. You were looking at it as something else. So I'm curious what you feel like what you did, if you want to look at hindsight, that worked. Because I know I could break it apart and tell you what I think worked based on typical sales tactics, but I'm curious to hear your point of view of what helped sell products based on your true, authentic expression of your product line, Kings Road.
There there are a couple of things. One was an internal shift. I was trying to make it work for a while, and I was waitressing. I cannot tell you how bad I am at waitressing. Like, like the number of times I once dropped an entire tray of drinks down someone's back. It like I would get I'm the only thing I had going for me was that I can apologize well. Um, I was terrible, and I was trying to make my business work, and it just wasn't working. I would have one sale here, one sale there, one sale here, one sale there. I felt like I was sort of coming to the internet being like, "Can you buy my things, please? Like I really need income from this, so can you buy my things?" Like I was here, everyone I wanted to buy my things was up here, and I was just really hoping for someone to sort of notice me and take pity on me and buy my stuff. And then one night I got home from work at 2 in the morning, and I woke up the next morning and like my hair had started falling out from the stress of it. Because I just like, I think like many people drawn into the herbal and healing arts, I am prone to overstimulation very, very easily. I don't do well with lots of people and interpersonal stuff with regards to having a million things going on at the same time. Like it was just so stressful. So my hair started falling out, and I was like, oh yeah, I can't do this. Like I'm not, I have been through enough with my health and my mental health. And there was actually a moment where I was like, oh, if I could get medicated again, I would be able to do this. And then I was like, oh, okay, this is where we are. I'm not going to do this to myself. And So then I just went, I have to make this work. And that switch into I have to make this work. Like there's literally no other choice. It was that day I realized I'm actually unemployable. Um, because I'm a terrible employee. I think like most people who start their own businesses, I am a like horrific employee. And so I was like, there is literally no choice. I have to make this work. And that started the fire because before I was like, well, I'll make this work when people choose me enough that then I'll get enough momentum going and I'll feel chosen enough that then I'll know that I have a chance at success and then I'll commit myself to this fully. And then I was like, no, I'm not going back. I'm not doing that to myself again. I no. So here we are. And so that was when I started getting serious about showing up for it every day in a way that was like, and it was still just me. I'm very much I kind of I need to work alone. And I need to do things for myself, and I've sort of always been that way. But I started studying other people's photos and being like, okay, how do I want my photos to look, and how do I want um and I started studying how other people were talking about things because I was really just like, hey, buy my stuff. Like, I made something. Don't you want it? It just sort of it didn't occur to me to think about who was buying it, whether they even needed what it was I was making. And so I started sort of looking at the people who I saw as successful and what it was they were doing and started breaking down the different things. So one of the things I noticed, and I think all of this is, I think this is stuff that most of us know by now, but I was like, oh, their packaging is lovely. It's still made by them, but it's lovely packaging. Their photos are very good, significantly better than mine. Okay. Um, the way they talk about their products is different. And I just started breaking these things down and thinking about how I wanted my version of that to look. And the thing that is always important to me is how do I make this easy? So somebody with a professional photography setup, I'm never going to do that. I'm never going to do that. So I was like, what can I do with my iPhone? What's going to look good? And I just sort of tried a few things, came up with a couple of things that worked for me that I felt proud enough that I could shout from the rooftops about because I think that one of the things that was stopping me before that was I wasn't I was sort of whispering about what I was doing because I didn't, I knew my photos weren't great. I knew that the way that I was talking about things wasn't amazing. So it was sort of like, hey, come and look at my stuff. I made some things. Um, so that, yes, I started just sort of looking at stuff like that. But then the other thing that happened, because I had made the decision that I was going to make it work, I started applying to different shows, and once again, this was during the time when you could do like I can't remember, Renegade Craft Fair, and I would make like $6,000 in a weekend. It was amazing. And because the other thing about me, put me in a restaurant trying to take orders, terrible. Put me in front of one person, they are mine. I still get emails from people saying like, "Hey, I came to one of your craft fairs, and I've been getting your emails ever since then." Like I'm like, put me in front of a person. I say this because I'm trying to find a flat for myself here in London, and whenever I'm talking to an estate agent, I'm like, just get me in front of the owner. Get me in front of the owner. They won't care that I don't have credit. I promise you. So that's like if I were applying that to other people, I would say, where are your skills? Because I'm really, really good with one person in front of me. Like, really good. Um, and so I started doing these trade shows and then started doing a farmer's market on a Sunday morning. And from that, started paying attention to what it was that people wanted and what it was that people actually needed. And that was when things started to kick in because it was the confluence of me. I love creating. Like I love creating and do so in so many different ways. Uh, but there's a very special thing that happens with creation when you can see an opening where your creation can actually have impact, where it's not just like, I made this because because it's pretty, and is instead like, oh, I made this because I can see all of the ways that it can ripple out into the world. And so I started thinking more about that and letting my intuition really, really guide me with it. And then when it came to marketing and talking about my work, there was another switch that happened when it really started taking off, which was I stopped trying to sound professional, which for me has been one of my biggest life things because I am a bit of a fraggle. And I am like the fact that I have sat still this long here is a miracle, and it's because the light's better over here. Um, I'm a bit of a fraggle, and I'm also like I don't take very much seriously in life, and I'm very, very whimsical. And so I was trying so hard to sound professional. And this has been, like I said, this is my issue that I come up against over and over and over and over again in every single iteration of my career where I've been like, when I started teaching, I was like, I need to teach and I need to be a professional and I need to have notes and I need to talk about physiology. Do you know who shouldn't teach physiology? Why? When there are people out there who teach amazing physiology, it's I, I'm not here for that. It is, but what I do so easily is lighten people up. I can so easily bring uh, a slightly different perspective that sort of jolts people a little bit because all of a sudden they're laughing at something or they're going, oh, huh. Um, there are, I can so easily bring whimsy to almost any situation because that's just how I work in the world. And so I can't remember. I don't think it was like there was no clear before or after, no big dramatic moment, but I just started being more authentic and stopped trying to sound like the kind of person who I thought should be selling herbal formulas and instead started talking about, you know, rose like it's a person, because to me it is. And started talking about how if I could pour gallons of rose elixir over Los Angeles, I would still. I would coat the city in rose. It needs it. Uh, and that is the thing that started making the biggest difference because like I said, nobody needs to learn physiology from me. It, like I'm pretty sure I called an appendix a dongle once. Like, it looks like a dongle, whatever a dongle is.
I love that so much. I love that so much.
You can use that when you're teaching
Thank
physiology.
you. I will. I just taught on the liver and gallbladder yesterday, and I should have called the gallbladder another dongle. It's a dongle. It's for sure just
Dongle.
something
It's
sick.
a little dongle.
I love that so much. I think what I'm hearing from you is that you understood, and this is what I'm really encouraging people here and many of my students. is that you were able, you put yourself out there, which was the hardest part to do, right? You put yourself out into these craft fairs, you put yourself into these situations like farmers markets, where you were starting to gain confidence. And okay, people want what I have. I'm able to start learning from this. And that learning, that confidence started building through the process of doing.
Yeah.
And then you started seeing, oh, I'm a good storyteller.
Yeah.
You are a very good storyteller. And people need meaning. We're meaning making machines. And if we don't tell the story of us through our endeavors, people actually don't care what it does. They actually want to know why you are choosing to share that with the world more than anything. And we can call those brand values, we can call them brand strategy, but really at the end of the day, that authenticity, the ability to have that authenticity is clearly deep inside of you. But the arc of where that comes into sales is the fact that you kept going into the why you're doing this versus the what you're doing. And that journey is, I would say, the best sales tactics that I could ever recommend anyone is being able to tell that story as authentically as possible. Again, authentically, not an easy journey, easy to think you have to be this or you have to be that or you have to be this. But
It's so easy to think you have to be something else.
people are intelligent. They can tell the difference right away. They
Yeah.
know. People are intelligent. We just feel it. Like we just, I don't know, I just don't feel it, right? That's that limbic brain that just is connected to energy and connected to meaning. And it's the biggest decision making for folks anywhere, all over the world, all humans.
It
We have a
really,
little bit, about 10 minutes before we open up for Q&A. So I'm going to ask you the next stage of herbalism going into the work you're doing now. Can
okay.
you give us an insight into what that transition has looked like and where that is in that transition as well? Yeah.
Um,
And thank you for staying still for this long. I'm
you're
really
welcome.
grateful. I'm very grateful.
It really is hard. It was sort of like one, the work I was doing sort of with people with psyche and it's more like coach like work. I hate the word coach. It's like sports again. Like, what do you do with this ball? But that work was building at the same time as I'd reached a point with herbalism where I was just making so much stuff. And I remember meeting with somebody as like a friend of my ex-husband who knew some of the people who like owned the parent company for Diptyque. And so he set me up with a meeting with this guy as a favor, which was really sweet of him. And I've never been a person with like aspirations towards greatness in business. It's just not, I've never really seen myself as a business person. I like making stuff. Um, and in this meeting, the guy was so helpful because he was like, you're at a point where you need to expand. So how much of this stuff can you gather? And I was like, oh no, I can't gather anymore. And he was like, well, you need to gather more if you want to expand. And I was like, yeah, but I have a relationship with the earth where I'm gathering things and I cannot, first of all, physically, I don't have the capacity, but, and he was like, well, people. And I was like, no, I have a relationship with the land where I'm gathering things and I won't take more than I am taking. Like I'm at what I think of as max. And he was like, then you would have to find another way to get these things. And I was like, yeah, but they're wild. They're not like you can't buy Rosa Woodsii. And he was like, well, then you're just gonna have to gather more. And I was like, no, it's not an option. And he was like, well, you can't expand then. And I was just like, oh, okay, then I'll just close my business because I'm bored. And it was literally that. I was like, I can't grow it in a way that feels in any way, uh, in any way to have integrity to me. And my relationship with the land that basically like healed me was I'm not going to turn around to it and be like, thanks for this stuff. Let's go make some money. Like, what the hell? Um, but I was so bored just making the same things over and over again. And I was making so much of it and just like making the same things, bottling the same things, packing the things. And I did have one person helping me, but I was bored. And at the same time, the other work I was doing was really, really exciting to me. And then it coincided with moving to Idlewild in the mountains. And then I couldn't find help. And so then I was doing all of this stuff on my own when what I wanted to be doing was working with people one on one and teaching groups and like helping other people find that thing. Now I can look back and see that what I was actually doing was just helping people find what was authentic to them in all of the different ways I was doing and courses I was doing and with one-on-one clients and stuff like that. But it was so exciting to me. And so then I stopped wanting to go in to be making stuff. And then I was just, not good at being on time anyway with regards to bottling, shipping, stuff like that. But it was just, I was like, oh, I don't want to be there. I don't want to be doing this anymore. And that also feels like what I sort of see the relationship with, first of all, with the earth, but also with my customers as sacred. And if I don't want to be there, that felt so messed up to me. Like, that felt so messed up to me. Like, I wasn't showing up with all of myself to do this thing that, like, people were trusting me with their money to put energy in these little bottles and send them to them. And if I didn't want to be there, I was like, I'm not, for what? For money? Okay. To not have integrity and not enjoy what I'm doing and lose the trust of people who've trusted me for money? How basic. Um, so yeah, I decided to stop doing it. And it, to be honest, for the first 2 years, I was like, yes, never pouring another bottle again. And then after a while, I was like, oh, I miss that formula. I miss making that. And I miss that formula. And I miss making that. And so I started doing just little pop-ups where I would make a bunch of stuff because I really, really, really wanted to, and then send them out and then go back to doing something else. So that worked for me. And then when I moved to London, I'm mm, there's no wild, I mean, there are wild roses here, but it's not Rosa Woodsy Eye, which is my favorite. So, um, and then yes, the transition of building the other work I was doing was hard. It was I had been so used to like I started King's Road Apothecary and it was 10 years. So I had forgotten how it felt to be in the beginning stages of not knowing how to communicate what I was doing and of people not knowing what I was doing. People still don't know what I do. I don't know what I do. So it's, it's very hard to talk about when I'm like, depends on who you are. Uh, but it once again, the just over time of doing it over and over and over again and showing up some classes with one person or three people or um just showing up and doing it again and again. And I think just like risking uh the embarrassment of figuring it out and not having confidence yet and just doing it anyway. All of life is inherently cringe. So why not just embrace it? The confidence builds. over time, but there's no way to build confidence without just really being shit first.
I love that so much. There's no way to build confidence without being shit first. That's my quote of the day. Thank you so much, Rebecca. There's so much. I mean, we could talk for 3 hours. There's no question in my mind
Don't have
because,
to move, but
yeah, exactly. But we are now. Thank you so much for all of that. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm so excited for people to check out your work and see what you have to offer. We are now going to open it up for questions from the community here. So anyone can unmute and ask questions or raise your hand. If you cannot speak because you're in a public space, feel free to put it in the chat and I will ask Rebecca. Rebecca might be able to see it as well. But does anyone have any questions? Lisa, yeah.
Hi, Rebecca. It's
hey,
been a joy to get to know you. And was it was really great hearing you. Well, first of all, you know, talk about this grid that we move through in life, and then thinking about that grid in terms of the moment that you decided not to make products or to like shift how you're making products. I'm just starting an herbal business, part of which is products. But I can already feel that it can't only be products for me because I think I would get bored if I was because that can consume your life, as you found. Um, and so I liked hearing about that alternative model almost that you have of like making stuff when you're inspired and then, showing up at a market and providing this bounty and then it goes away and maybe you make more later on. And I'm curious about how your audience or your customer base, um, how you sort of like cared for them as you took away your beautiful products. That then, like what was that relationship like? What was the reaction from your customer base when you transitioned into that more sporadic model of product making?
I am not the best example for this. Um, because of aforementioned Scorpio-ness, when people, like I told people that I was stopping, and when people responded with disappointment, I was basically like, don't tie me down. I've already moved over there. Like, what do you do? Like, be happy for me or go away. That's so I'm not a great example of how I cared for people with that because I think the transition was so any transition in life like is when you're able to find what it is that you want to be doing and it's moving against you're moving against your own momentum basically that has been carrying on in one direction for so long, but everyone in your life is sort of a feedback loop into that momentum and direction that you are carrying. And this, I had thousands and thousands of people who were sort of feedback loops maintaining that momentum. And so it is so hard to transition to another direction that it, I think my reaction to that when it feels like somebody is trying to and it's obviously not nobody's like actually like, oh, I'm going to try and be sticky with Rebecca so that she doesn't change direction. They're literally just expressing their emotions. But this is why I'm saying this is like a not don't do what I do situation, but I just get angry. It's the same with every big life transition I have. If even one of my close friends said something to me about when I said I was moving to London and I'd already mostly packed up my house, and she said, the speed at which you move and make change really scares me. And I was just like, that's your problem.
Mm.
Like, get out my way. Get on board or get out my way. And so yeah, that's not, I'm not I didn't handle that well. Is Yeah, my customer care wasn't great.
Can I add
It,
something to that, Rebecca? And for you, Lisi, I think what you're speaking about, Rebecca, reminds me of something very similar to some of my journeys, especially having to shut down my store after 10 years. But if you're starting something that is a pop-up, call it a pop-up from the beginning. Like enter people into this journey as this is my story. I'm authentically doing it when I feel inspired and when I feel connected. So the expectation, Rebecca's talking about the change of expectation,
Oh,
right? Change is the hard part. But Lisa, you have an opportunity to like set expectations exactly as you want it to be from the
Mhm.
very beginning. That is a very different set of problems. You'll have other problems that will come up that is different than if you'd ever decide to shut it down. But I think that's what's so beautiful about this authentic journey is you're saying to people now, this is what I'm going to do. I will keep you posted. But one of the best sales tactics is urgency. It's limited, there's a timestamp on it, and people will want it because it's ending. It's not going to be around forever. And so you'll actually learn a lot in that process if you can truly be as honest as possible, even as honest as you are with us about what works for you now. And it sets you up for success in that way.
That's great. Yeah, I feel like Rebecca was talking about these like external structures that are imposed on us and what we think we should be doing and think we should be valuing in the ways we think we should be doing things. And with business, it's like growth, 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 right? So, and I'm sort of like, yeah, this I'm so glad I'm in this cohort because yes, I am at that point where I'm like, okay, what do I want it to look like? I don't want it to be like a runaway train that I suddenly feel myself on board and um yeah, so thank you so much for providing all of these
Maybe
like
something about that,
alternative.
unsolicited advice wise.
Hmm.
It's really important to know or to have the idea of what it is you value in advance. Like you're saying in advance, oh, I don't want to be uh s- completely married to this um day in, day out. And so the idea of a pop-up sounds really, really good because then you can do it when you feel like it, and then it's like a circus coming to town.
Hmm.
Very exciting. And having clarity on your values in that way is really important. Um, I had something to say and it's literally just left my head. Like, careful about letting it limit you. It's that thing about getting like creating a story somewhere and then getting overly attached to it. When you are creating something, it is going to sort of grow and expand in whatever way it starts to. And while if you have too rigid a structure of I only want to be doing this part-time, then sometimes something, let's say like I only want to be doing this part-time is here and it's a very strong structure and feeling
Mm.
you have and it feels like it's starting to butt up against that. It can be so easy to push the thing out of its own growth because we have such a strong idea, whereas sometimes it actually only wants to do that, which is
Mm.
which would be totally fine. You know, that's not all of a sudden you are working 15-hour days, 7 days a week. That might, that's just a tiny little bit. So just careful about letting I don't want it to be X. We do this with all sorts of things. We sort of disaster scenario, like what's the absolute worst version of this? And so then when it starts to get close to that, it's like what I'm saying is keep it a fluid structure where you know that you value your own freedom and fluidity. But if it starts to get close to that, just like you like test the edges, test your own edges with that.
Yeah. I think the way that I'm thinking about the products right now, and I mean it last year did feel like it was like all products all the time, but I was like just launching. So I'm like theater and experience designer by trade, and so I'm thinking about the products as like a piece of the world. that I'm building. Yeah, so I think it's going to be about like, are the products helping to enhance the world I'm building, serving the world? Are they an integral part of that? Or is it extra? Is it separate? I want to make it all one thing.
I love that. That's that idea of a writer building a world building experience, right? That it's one piece. And I think that's a beautiful way to look at your ecosystem that
Mm,
you're creating. Thank you so much for sharing,
mm.
Lacey.
Thank you.
I know Shelley Rose has a question. Please share.
Yes, thank you so much. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. Okay. So I'm going to figure out the best way to word this. So I'm kind of hearing, Rebecca, through your story that there's like I mean you opened up our time together with talking about authenticity, and it seems like through your journey there's been like, moments of like coming back to yourself of authentically being you. And so my question is, what how has maintaining that connection been like for you? Like, I think as women, and especially like women in business, there can be such external messages and pressure of like, you need to be like this, and your business needs to look this way. And if you don't do it this way, you're going to go broke and hungry. And it's like, well, that's really scary. I don't want to do that. And so I think that, sometimes those external voices can sometimes override our own at times. And so I'm curious, like, on your journey, or any like advice that you have in just like staying fully yourself throughout the rides and the waves and the ebbs and the flows of it all.
Mm.
I hope that makes sense.
Honestly, I feel like the idea of being able to stay fully yourself through this vast web of existence is too much pressure because you do your best to maintain a connection to what is true and authentic to you. And the the way I would describe that to like if we were sitting here in front of each other, I would ask you, what do you feel like when you are at your absolute most happy and alive? When do you remember feeling that way? What examples do you have of that? And then have you feel that? And really, really just feel into that energy so strongly until you're able to sort of give it a bit of a life of its own. Like it's going to start to have colors or feelings to it, or a sort of images that come up with it. There's in describing this, are you all starting to feel into that a bit about how that feels? And there are going to be different versions of it. As you connect to this more, like there's, I have one version that is candles lit, favorite music playing, pottering in the kitchen, dancing. Like that's one version. There's one that is driving up PCH, windows down, music so loud that it's shocking. I still have eardrums. Like there's all sorts of versions of fully alive that we all have that but what does that feel like to you? And how in naming it in the sense of giving it colors, textures. Colors, textures are usually the things that they become anchors to that feeling that allow you to come back to it. And then when you start to sort of approach your work in your life, the we're pulled out of this feeling constantly. This is, what we've been discussing while we're here. And the but this is the place to create from, to act from, to like if I'm going to sit down and write something, it's I have to write from that place, or I know that what I'm putting into the world is somewhere off over here that's like not in my authentic path. And every single thing that I have ever created and drawn to myself, like every sort of version of success, and I say success because, like success is the thing that we define for ourselves based on our own values and what it is that we want. Um, but it has only ever come from being connected to that feeling for me. And as I developed my own connection with that feeling, which is it's an internal compass. It is, I think this is and I'm trying to be aware of time. Um, but when it comes to authenticity, it is so easy to get caught up in external markers of what that looks like. And so, people will go, "Oh, I've made an authentic me Pinterest board." And it's like my boss babe outfits or my like the candlesticks I want or whatever it is. But that feeling that you're able to start to feel, and depending on where you are, sometimes it's hard to feel. Sometimes you just got to reach for like whatever is pointing in its direction. Sort of like I know that my favorite shop is 20 minutes in that direction, but I'm not there right now. So I can just sort of imagine it over there, but I'm not there. Um, but connecting with that feeling is actually the way to sort of stay fully present where you are in that web, because the more you're able to stay in there, the less you're paying attention to the things that put the brakes on. And so when you find that feeling, whatever version of it is, that is yours, and start to act from there and create from there and make your plans from there. Seriously, make your plans from there. Like if you're, every single one of us wakes up, well, maybe not every single one of us wakes up at 3 in the morning. I wake up at 3 in the morning, and that's when I start to stress about things. And nobody has ever had a good life plan at 3 in the morning when thinking, oh shit, what if? Nobody. But when you are feeling fully alive and fully in your own path, really, really deeply, that's the time to make a life plan. Because that's when you go, oh, instead of like, oh, what if? It's like, oh, what if? And oh, what if, like staring down the open road, that's where you want your life plan from. So to come back to how do you stay on it? You have to figure out what you know when you're bowling and you're terrible at bowling and they put the bouncy things down the sides of the well, I haven't done bowling since I was about 10, so I don't know if they still do that, but there's like bouncy things down the sides so that the ball goes dunk 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 all the way to the pins. Uh, the pins are your goal, and you have to figure out what your bouncy things are. For me, the and let's say like the being able to get the ball of your energy moving straight down the middle of the what's it called? Like an aisle and
I
a
think it's the
bowling
lane, right?
lane. Thanks.
Okay.
Like football pitch, bowling lane. I keep using analogies I have no idea about. Bowling lane. So the goal, let's say, is the like remaining in your authentic path is getting that ball right down the middle of the lane to a strike. Thanks. Uh, but in order to get to that point, that connection with that energy needs to be so strong that the outside world stops having as much influence. And when you are on the edge of your own expansion, it's always like there is not a day that is not scary. There is not a day that you're not facing out into the unknown going, "Oh goodness, this is this is new. Can I do this? I don't know." And so the ease with which we can get pulled in different directions. Like we can get pulled in different directions really, really easily. So figuring out what those bumpers are for me, when I am really like flying in my really deeply authentic place, I am a really happy person. Like happy and bouncy and so much energy. And so if I have two, my bumpers are one, if I start to get really overly emotional, something's off for me. Like I'm something is off. If I'm like if someone comes up to me and is like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Oh, okay, something's going on." Because that's just like, and then the other one is I go into like free states when I'm pushing myself too fast. And so then if I wake up one morning and I'm like, I don't feel like getting out of bed, what I want to do is stay in bed all day and read. I'm like either pushing myself too fast, or which is when I go into a freeze state, or being pulled off my own course, off whatever that authentic trajectory is. I start to get overly emotional. And those are my personal bumpers. And the more you connect with that feeling and the more you start to just fly along your own path in that way, the more intolerable it starts to feel when you're not on it, which is why my markers are emotional and very, very, very early. Like it's very rare to once you get used to it to end up in a place where you're like, oh my goodness, like I thought I was going to Santa Fe, but I am in North Dakota. How did that happen? I don't understand. It's more like, oh, I thought I was going to Santa Fe, but I'm in Albuquerque. Oops. Um, which is a really easy fix. So it's that, but it's connecting with it over and over and over again, and connecting with it in ways that uh are easy. So like don't connecting with it for the first time, but like, and now I'm going to write my opus. Now I'm going to make my next 5-year business plan and it's going to be perfect and fully authentic right now. But like connect with it and go for a walk. See what happens. Connect with it and see how you feel when you've connected with it and see what you feel like doing from there. It might be dancing around your kitchen, it might be going for a walk, it might be going to the coffee shop and chatting to a stranger, but do things that are not in the area that you are attached to being most authentic. Like start to build the muscle in areas that mean nothing, because then when you start to get more and more used to it, you can start to apply it to the thing that actually means something to you, and then it will be easier because you'll have momentum with it. Does that make sense? Did that answer your question?
That made
Okay.
total sense, and I needed to hear all of that. Thank you so much.
Thank you for asking that question, Shelley. Thank you so much, Shelley Rose. Lauren, I know you've been waiting patiently. Thank you.
No problem. Thank Shelley Rose, I appreciate that question. I think a lot of what I was going to ask was just answered, but yeah, I just wanted to say that I'm enjoying this conversation for so many reasons, and one is um, just that we're moving into seeing your transition from product into more of some type of practitioner, or I don't know. I'm just using that word, coach, who know, whatever that word is, a guide. Whatever you have, whatever that might be. And I find myself in a never having made products to sell, but wanting to move more into the realm of being more of a guide, um, and having a full toolbox of all kinds of things. And but I've been hesitating to put myself out there because I do feel like trying to stay true to my own sense of authenticity. Like I'm having a hard time finding the words to say what I might be offering to me to someone else. And I keep hearing over and over again in today's session, and also in sessions we've had prior, where it's like you have to do the work to start to figure out what it is you're doing. But you also have to put something out there and try to, like, that does feel authentic, and trying to use the words and I've had a hard time finding the peg of like, well, this is kind of the thing that people might know or want. And so I don't know, and I'm much more of an introvert, I sense, than so just taking those risks feel really challenging, and I don't really know what I'm asking except for I feel like I'm trying to make that being authentic and putting myself out there and trying to know that I feel like I have a whole range of tools to guide somebody and to help support someone on an experience. And yet I don't even know what I would be guiding them towards either. It's like their own, like what you're saying, like it's different for every person. So how I'm just like how struggling how to find the words that might resonate with a person to understand what it is they might get in working with me or anyway, it's kind of a big question, but I'm just gonna throw it out there anyway. Let's see.
It feels like there are two things there. One is, what the hell is it I actually do? And then the other is, and how do I talk about it in a way that is marketable? Or how do I talk about it at all? And as somebody who also, I don't know how to describe it. I met with a marketing expert once a few years ago, because I was having this exact issue, but an issue I continue to have, to be clear, um, which is why I'm answering your question. Uh, but I met with the marketing expert because I was like, I don't know how to talk about what I do. And she asked me so many questions, and we talked for an hour. And after the hour, she said, I know what your problem is. And I was like, tell me what my problem is. And she says, I work with the hierarchy of needs. And any marketing expert is looking to find out where on that hierarchy a person's service lands. And then it is easy to talk about what they do. And she says, what you do is self-actualization. And by nature, there is no way to talk about that. The only way to market what you do is to be what it is that you are giving the world. And and I was like, well, that's not going to help me on Instagram, is it? Um, but she was like, it is she said you can talk about it, you can talk around it, but when it comes to what you actually do, when it is the thing that is untalkaboutable, the way to show it is to be it. And to be it is different for all of us because we all have different tools and all have different ways of being. So it is in many ways using all of those tools and practicing them and sort of living by example in a way that is authentic. And when it comes to talking about it, the thing that I have found to help the most is stories. Is stories. Is to say, every day I'm out in the world and I'm not very introverted. So being out in the world, chatting to strangers is my jam. Um, but I had a client for years who does similar work, who was the most introverted person I've ever known. Like for her, like a good chat that day was being out talking to the trees. And she also found ways simply to communicate what she did. She communicated it with art because she didn't want to be on Instagram talking into camera and trying to drum up engagement. She did art. She practiced meditation and taught other people and still teaches other people how to meditate, and she lives the thing that she is teaching others in such a way that people are drawn to in the same way as I am very, very energetic, she is like still water, and being around her feels like being with still water. Or maybe ice. It's just like it's so clear and it's so calm and it's so spacious that it's you cannot help but feel what it is that she does, even though she can't tell you what she does. She's like, I just help people find their way. Um, and that's really it, it is so simple that it sometimes feels impossible to see because we're looking for complex ways to describe something. But what if you're just leading people home? What if you're just helping them find a path in the dark? And everyone wants a path in the dark. No one wants to be banging into trees and shit. And then finding ways to talk about it comes with time. It's like it's going to be clunky. It's going to be really, really clunky. Someone's going to say, "What do you do?" And you're going to be like, "I talk to crows." Uh, I still like someone says, "What do you do?" And I at the beginning, I was like, "Oh, I don't want to talk about what I do." It's going to be clunky. It's going to be so cringe. You're, and over time, you'll go, "Oh, I like the way I said that. I need to write that down." I was in the sauna a few weeks ago and someone asked me what I did, and I was just chattering about spirit guides and helping people, and I was like, "Yeah, it's like Google Maps for your soul." And then I was like, that was so good. And there's like 15 people in the sauna who were like, that was so good. And I was like, I have to go. I have to write that down. Bye.
Thank you so
You'll,
much.
yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. I'm cognizant of time, and I know Brittany has a question. Do you have time for one more question? I know you have a client coming up soon.
Let me just send one quick text.
Okay, thank you. And I'm going to add that to Lauren too. I think one of the pieces that while she's checking in with her client, one of the pieces that I want to share is that you keep saying that people will resonate with. And I think you need to take that out of the equation. For you to actually write the thing that makes the most sense to you, because I promise you people are intelligent and you want intelligent clients. I promise you, you don't dumb it down. Don't try to communicate it the way you think people will take it. I want you to go as high up and wacko and exciting and different and beautiful and deep as you want. And then, as Rebecca shared, like the communities will tell you what makes sense for them. But truly, at the end of the day, I think this is where it comes down to authenticity. We stop when we think, is this going to be received? That fear of not of being othered, that fear of not being received stops us before we even get started. And I promise you, you can tell me what you do and I'll get it. And you want clients that get it, even from the beginning, because those are the best clients anyway. The best ones are already hanging out with you. And then the ones will come later that are like on the fence, but let those be later. But the ones who get it will totally get whatever you put out there, I promise. As like big and dreamy and beautiful as you want. Rebecca, do you have time for one more question?
I have time for one more question,
Okay,
and I will try and answer it in 3 minutes.
awesome. Okay, Brittany, please share.
Hello. Um,
Hi.
I guess my question is about like integrating like disparate parts of your identity in your business. I have a background as a writer, and then I have this herbalism business now, and um, the identity of my writer self is like so different from my herbalist self, and I guess I'm wondering how to like bring those together. Like I was like a satire writer, which is not really like the tone of the typical herbalist writing. Um,
Love
So
that.
yeah, I guess I'm also having this transition, but involves convergence of different parts of myself that don't usually go together.
Is satire you?
My sense of humor is definitely like pretty central to my identity.
Then there's no separation. The tear the wall down. That's how, I mean, or, brick by brick, start to move the wall around, maybe. Like, you don't need to smash a wall, but the ways in which we are herbal satire, the ways in which we are taught to conform, I think also ties in with, oh, hello, um, with this question, because we, in various fields, think of the different ways that we can be acceptable. And so it's like, I'll use myself as an example, doing sort of spiritual guidance work, but I love shopping. I love clothes so much. These two things don't fit together, except for the fact that I exist. And so they do fit together because this is the multitudes of who we are, it exists. Every single one of us is a unique combination of really interesting and some not interesting, but like for the most part, interesting traits. And it's like we, in thinking that we have to hide aspects of ourselves, it is restricting our authenticity to the parts of ourselves that we think are palatable. So like this gets to be a herbalist, and this doesn't get to be a herbalist because it is too snarky. No herbalists are gonna like how snarky I am. All herbalists are gonna like how snarky you are. Like it is a, as you know, a very intelligent bunch of highly cynical, snarky people. Like the likelihood of that combination actually, like when it's like the task is to find the combination that has purpose. So like orienting it towards how can all of these parts of me come together into something that is unique, that is also purposeful and useful. And my goodness, doesn't the world need levity right now?
I
Like
second that. Yeah.
everyone in the world is stressed. I mean, not everyone, but mostly everyone's stressed. Everyone thinks the world's falling apart. It might be. Levity is kind of what we all need. So I say, yeah, I say smash the wall. Like the fear, I think for all of us with regards to authenticity is that we won't be accepted. Like I genuinely was so afraid, my dog, was so afraid that if people saw or knew how sort of, like I was joking earlier when I said like a stereotypical Jewish princess, but like I kind of am. Like a bit of a parody of myself in that way. And I was so afraid of showing that side of myself, but it turns out it was nothing to do with actually showing that to the world or being like, guess what? I have a confession to make. I really like nice clothes. And it was more about letting myself see that side of myself and myself accept that I am this and this all at the same time, and also a bit of this and also a bit of this. And it's like allowing all of that to be means that you just get bigger. And then you can, on one day, you can create from this part of yourself, and then one day you can create from this part of yourself, and one day you can create from this part of yourself, and it's all authentic. But in allowing yourself to be as big as you are, that's when you're really stepping into your own energy flow fully.
That was so beautiful, Rebecca. Thank you so much. I remember when I used to not shave my legs and shave my armpits because that's what herbalists did. And then I shaved them one day and I was like, oh my God, I love shaving my legs. I love it. And it's like, oh, right. I'm an herbalist, true and true. But I love certain things too. And it's like, there's room for everyone. There's everything for everyone. And I think it's so easy for us to actually be really small and think we have to fit in a box to be a certain thing. But actually, we get to be exactly who we are, and more people will follow you when you are saying, I love this because I want to love this. That's all that matters. You can have tattoos, you have no tattoos. It doesn't fucking matter. Whatever works for you. You can brush your hair, you can have dreads. It doesn't matter. Whatever works for you. It doesn't matter. And I love that. So thank you for being that for all of us. Thank you for the extra time. Thank you, all of you, for being present. Rebecca, I love you so much.
I love you so much. Thank you
Beautiful
so much for
day.
having me. This was such a delight.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I will see you all soon. Thank you,
Yeah.
Rebecca. Thank you all. Take care.